Welcome back to the series Odd Odds Oddities, where we take a look at single events that can occur in life. Today, we ask, what are the odds of playing a checkmate by chance? The quickest checkmate possible is Fool's Mate, which takes 2 moves total, 2 for white and 2 for black. We will not limit ourselves to the Fool's Mate, however, as there are many more checkmates to find. If we had a specific board position like Fool's Mate, we could simply calculate the set of moves needed by taking the required moves over the total possible for each move required. Since we aren't after a specific board position and are after checkmate, we'll only care about moves in which a check is played. All other moves are simply a sequence of moves that lead up to checkmate or just randomness between checks. There are 3 possible responses to a check: a legal king move, blocking the checking piece, and capturing the checking piece. A chessboard consists of 8 by 8 squares to equal 64 total. Next, we'll determine the maximum amount of moves each piece has on any given turn. The king, 8 moves, 1 in each direction. The queen, 28 moves. The rook, 14. The bishop, 14 as well. The knight, 8 moves. And the pawn, 3. The king can be put into check by any piece aside from the opponent's king. For checkmate to occur, no legal moves must be available. For a queen check, it can be blocked, captured, or the king can move. For the queen to check the king, they need to be on the same rank, file, or diagonal. If the queen touches the king, it can be captured by the king if and only if it is undefended. Otherwise, the queen's check can be blocked or the queen can be captured. If the queen checks the king, at the very least, 2 of the king's moves are unavailable. At the maximum, there can be 6 squares between the queen and king in such a scenario. On each square, there is a chance that 1 piece may be able to block the check. For a queen, it's 28 possible placements minus 1 diagonal or file, which is 7, to equal 21. Therefore, a 21 in 64 chance a queen can block the check on one of the 6 squares. For a rook, it's 7 possible placements, 7 over 64. For a bishop, it's the same. For a knight, there are approximately 8 possible placements, for 8 in 64, or 1 in 8. For a pawn, there's approximately 1 possible placement, for 1 in 64. We also have to factor in the second rook, bishop, and knight. The second bishop can't ever control the same square as the other bishop, and the second rook and knight won't be considered as if they were in control of the square. They'd simply be the first. To solve for the chance that the queen's check can be blocked, we go 21 over 64 plus 7 over 64 plus 7 over 64 plus 8 over 64 plus 1 over 64 to get 44 over 64 or 11 over 16. Then we make the following equation to get 16,761,591 over 16,777,216. And the odds that the queen is unblocked and delivers the checkmate would be 15,625 over 16,777,216. For a rook check, the equation is the same. For a bishop check, the equation is also the same. For a knight check, it can't be blocked. For a pawn check, it can only be captured as long as it's undefended. For capturing the checking piece, the chances a queen, a pawn, a knight, a bishop, or a rook can be captured on their square is the same 11 over 16 we've seen earlier. The same odds for how likely it is that a piece controls that square. For moving the king, there are 8 possible squares that the king can move to, unless the checking piece covers the other squares. Friendly pieces are in the way, which there are 15 of them, or other attacking pieces are controlling those squares. For the queen, assuming the queen is right next to the king, there are only 2 potential moves. For each square, there's a 15 over 64 chance a friendly piece suffocates the king on that square. Therefore, there's a 49 over 64. The king can escape to that square. And 15 over 64 squared equals 225 over 4096. And those are the odds that the king can't escape and is checkmated. For a rook, there are 6 possible king moves. The bishop would be the same. A knight leaves 8 squares available. Pawns leave 7 squares available. Finally, we have to determine the likelihood that a check will be played. We've already determined the odds that a check is a checkmate. A check is merely any time a piece is threatening a king. A king can be on any of the 64 squares. A 1 in 64. That square has the potential to interact with 28 potential queen moves, 7 potential rook and bishop moves, 8 potential knight moves, and 1 potential pawn move. The likelihood that a piece is moved into position for the check on the same turn becomes how likely it is for that piece to move into a checking square. For delivering the check, queen's odds become 28 over 64, rook's 14 over 64, bishop 7 over 64, as only one may be able to check at any given time. Knights 8 over 64, as only 8 squares total can check the king. And pawns 2 over 48, as pawns can't ever check on the first or back rank. Multiplied by how likely it is for that piece to be moved, we get queens 1 in 16, rooks 2 in 16, bishop 1 in 16, knights 2 in 16, and pawns 2 in 16. Altogether, we get queen 7 over 256, rooks the same, bishops 7 over 1024, knights 1 in 64, and pawns 1 in 192. Multiplied altogether, the total odds become 5 quindecillion over 31 septenvigintillion. Thanks for watching.